afternoon. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili, and these are your hard facts.
Shakumaku, everybody. Someone says, I like to shout Shakumaku all the way from Tehran to Lagos and back to Etibi and Christian, where we are hitting you live and direct.
Happy World Food Day, yes. Today at the UN, they want to tell us, and they want all of us to raise awareness about world hunger, and also to appreciate the people, the organizations, and the systems that ensure that we have something to eat. So thank you to you if you are a trader who's listening to the show. If you're a farmer, if you own a restaurant, if you're a waiter, if you're a chef, mama puts, logistics people who deliver my lunch to my office. Thank you. All of you are in the food ecosystem. So thanks for all you do. Thanks for making me fat.
All right. Now we know where the value chain is. And they're targeting people like Sandra, who no longer want to cook at home. Born with eating, how do you say, mede over here. All right. So that's it. We're going to be having a big show this afternoon. And just like Sandra said, the World Food Day will take center stage. All the discussions. Now, but Big Three first, eh?
Big Three first, because, hey, we don't give you food here on Hard Facts. We give you the next best thing, though. I mean, we're always breaking things down for you here every day, bringing the best insights your way, breaking down the most important topics. And you can catch last week's shows on Facebook and on YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. Now, we have a great show. First stop, Labour and government have returned to the negotiating table. And we also have the agriculture minister saying that there is no hunger in Nigeria. Yes, and NAFDAC will shut down bakeries that still use potassium bromate in bread. That's still happening. On the glass ceiling today, we're talking about the phenomenon of baby factories. We're going to dive deep into the root causes and look at efforts to eradicate it. And I have amazing guests that you need to hear. You need to hear them. Today, I have a nun on the show. There's a nun joining us on the glass ceiling, a reverend sister. A special report is happening on the Big Hard Fact. Yes, Aghogho?
Yeah, the World Food Day. And so we're going to be having discussions, touching all the important basics. You're going to get a number of actors involved in the discussion today. Food Agriculture Organization's representative to Nigeria and to ECOWAS. Sufyan Koroma will be joining us on the Big Hard Fact.
That's
as well
right.
as Mira Meta, who is a large-scale farmer. And we also hope we can get the Lagos narrative with the Commissioner for Agriculture joining the conversation. So look forward to foodie talk today.
We'll wrap up the show with I Beg to Differ. Throughout the show, as always, we'll have updates from the world of news, sports, and entertainment from our fantastic newsroom. But let's get started with the Big Three.
This is the Big Three.
The Big Three.
On Hard Facts. On 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Today on the Big Three, we're talking about things that everyone is talking about because that's what you expect on the Big Three. Will the government and Labour reach a deal? Is there really no hunger in Nigeria? Really? And why are bakers still using potassium bromate even though it is banned and deadly? Let's get into these stories. We've been reporting here on Nigeria Info FM that negotiators for organized labor and the federal government will enter a meeting today to try and find a deal on the consequential adjustment to the salary scale. Today's the last day, the last scheduled day of the negotiations. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC has clarified an earlier statement, and they're saying that they never threatened to embark on a strike if the talks fail. The NLC said it only threatened punitive measures against government, but never specified what they should be. Does it look like there'll be a deal, Aghogho?
Yuba Waba's NLC is developing a name for itself, like its predecessor also, in the way they went about the strike or no strike deal. I had to take my mind back to when last the NLC had a successful industrial action that was carried out by all of them. I kept my fingers crossed yesterday because they say history likes to repeat itself, and the antecedent for the labor unions has always been to have these clandestine meetings happen midnight, and they sort of will say, oh, we finally have agreed towards something when the rest of us are fast asleep. And that's exactly what it looks like has happened now. So in the last hour or more than an hour now, they've been meeting in Abuja. Correspondents are monitoring that meeting, and I'd like to see where that will head. But already the NLC, the trade unions, which are faction that lies following the elections that happened some was it 4 or 5 years ago, disputed elections that had George emerge as the United Labour Congress, already shows. Even though they agree on the implementation of the minimum on the strike, it does appear that the labor unions don't have a unified front, because you have a large percentage of them turning their backs on the strike. And the strike goes on, it's going to be good as dead, because it doesn't have the full backing of all the workers, and it just will be a cosmetic show at the end of the day. Even though Ajero has been criticized for the statement, but he's someone that you cannot just push aside and think what he says doesn't hold water. And he said Labour is negotiating from a point of weakness, and I paused when he said that, because suddenly occurred to me that many of the comments from the NLC's Ayuba Waba executive does suggest that they're not ready to go on this strike, even when it does appear the government has to come out in a full blast to say this is exactly what we intend to do with the wage structure for level 7 to 14, and then from 14 upwards. So I keep my fingers crossed. I say at the end of today, they arrive at some deal that will, leave a bittersweet taste in the mouths of many.
So something's confusing for me, Aghogho. You have the NLC national leadership saying that they never called for any strike or threatened any strike. Meanwhile, NAN and PM News is reporting that in Asaba, Delta State, NLC officials are closing down government offices. They're turning pupils away from government schools because, according to them, the strike is on. And the confusion doesn't end there, Aghogho. The ULC, that's the United Labour Congress, they're saying that any calls for a strike from the NLC or the TUC would be illegitimate because the leadership has not done proper consultations with national stakeholders and CSOs and community associations. According to the ULC, because all those groups were not called, any strike the NLC attempts will not shut the nation down and will be a failure. Now, there are analysts who have looked at these statements and who've said to me, Sandra, I wonder whether there is disunity in the organized labor camp, and there are doubts about whether they will be able to speak in one voice to achieve our goals. And yesterday we were hearing the government and labor both compromised a bit. Government offered to increase what it is planning to pay the civil servants. Labor offered a reduction of what they're asking for. The two offers have not yet met in the middle. But here's something that we need to remember. President Buhari has already presented a budget to the National Assembly. That budget captures all federal government salaries for next year. Since the budget was written before this week's negotiations, the money allocated in it for salaries must still reflect government's original plan, which Labour has rejected. So this means that government will probably have to edit the budget if a new deal is reached. The question is, will they borrow again to fund the increase? That's up to you to decide. But a question that you can answer when you do give us a call is, will a deal be reached? Do you think Labour is divided? Now, because we have our friends from Olimpo Forex joining us on the show today at 3:45, let's move to the next story. And you can send us comments on WhatsApp and Facebook. We're going to take them as we go along. Facebook is Nigeria Info FM, of course. Let's get your thoughts on that first story. And WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. Our next story takes us from salaries to the food you buy with salaries. The Agriculture Minister, Sani Nanono, has said that there is no hunger in Nigeria, but there could be inconveniences. Nanono said this at an official World Food Day event. He said that Nigeria has achieved self-sufficiency in food production and that food is very cheap here. He said, quote, "When people talk about hunger in this government, I just laugh." End of quote. According to the minister, Nigeria's self-sufficiency in food production was the reason for the border closure, and that the border will remain closed until neighboring countries, quote, respect Nigeria's stand on food importation. So, Aghogho, the minister says food is cheap in Nigeria and there is no hunger, only inconvenience.
Well, the minister is trying to be, according to a number of critics I've seen of the statement he's made, being tongue-in-cheek when he says that Nigeria doesn't have a hunger problem. The latest statistics for the countries that spend the least on food Nigeria is not included in that list. The United States is up there at 6% of its income spent on food, even higher than Europe, which ranks between 8 and 10%. Nigeria, interestingly, is at the top of the countries that spend the most on food, 56% of the income. And yeah, I've been thinking about this for a number of days about how much of my income is going into food. And it's true. My calculation is very close to it. 56% of average Nigerians' income is going to food. But then this is where the minister probably is close to the truth, because you would think with that percentage of Nigerians who are spending 56% of their income on food, that it is higher than the United States. But no, the average United States is spending $2,392 a year on food compared to Nigeria, which is half of that amount, which is $1,132 a year. But then it's back to the first topic we have on the big three, which is the earning power of the average Nigerian. 30,000 naira is not what the American is earning for minimum wage by the farthest stretch of the mind. So that's my 50 kobo on this one.
And now the name of the show is Hard Facts. We try our best to give you the raw data from trusted sources, and we let you decide what is true and what is not. So the minister has said no hunger and that food is cheap. I thinks it's tongue-in-cheek. But let me remind you that some weeks ago we discussed food security here on Hard Facts, and we gave you the statistics from the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization. They are the agency of the United Nations responsible for promoting food security in the world. And they are the source of all official data. And here's what they had to say about Nigeria in their food security index, which they publish every year in partnership with The Economist. According to FAO, Nigeria scores 38% on food security and ranks 96% in the world out of 113 countries. Now, here's the breakdown of that score. Our food availability is 44.4%. That means, according to the FAO, only 44.4% of Nigerians are able to eat 3 square meals a day, every day. No story. Now, our food affordability, Aghogho talked about that, is 26.5%. So that means that only 26.5% of Nigerians have access to food that they can conveniently afford. So only a quarter of Nigerians can comfortably afford 3 meals a day and can access it easily. So you've heard that statement of the minister and you've heard the data from FAO. You decide. I've heard analysts who have gone online to discuss the minister's comments as well, and they seem to be asking this question. If we have no hunger and if we have cheap surplus food, nobody will be interested in buying imported food, and the importation would stop without closing the border. And I'm wondering whether you agree with that comment. Do you agree that there is no hunger in Nigeria, only inconveniences? Do you agree that food is very cheap to buy? Share your thoughts with us on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. 080-959-75805. You can also send us a WhatsApp message. WhatsApp is 080-959-74. I think I've said WhatsApp number several times. Facebook is Nigeria Info FM. Leave us comments on Facebook as well. We'll try and take calls by the time we're done with the third story, and you can react to the 3 stories. But we want to take your comments as we go along. So again,
let's go on WhatsApp and hear what people are saying.
Fantastic.
This is from Emmanuel. Emmanuel's at Ilukweju, who says, I wonder the way our rulers make statements. Walking on the street, you see beggars everywhere, and the minister is saying, no hunger. Now, wow. I saw NLC people at Niger Insurance. This is Adiola Odek, which isn't far from here, trying to lock up the building. Interesting. We'll monitor that story and see what is going on in terms of this NLC's planned strike. But keep them messages coming in. This one hasn't landed yet.
When it does land, we're going to look at it, plus your comments off Facebook as well. Nigeria Info FM. We're streaming this conversation live, so leave those comments and we'll take them on the show. We started with salaries and then we moved to food in general. Let's end the big 3 with our daily bread. NAFDAC has given all bakeries in Nigeria 3 weeks to stop baking bread with potassium bromate or risk getting shut down. The ultimatum came from the NAFDAC Director General herself in Lagos. They warned them that unhygienic practices were next and urged them to take the various compliance trainings that the agency has made available for bakers. The DG condemned the underhanded tactics that some bakers allegedly use to sneak potassium bromate into their bread and reminded them that the chemical may cause cancer in humans and that there are safe alternatives available in the market like high yeast flour. Aghogho conquered potassium bromate. Aghogho, how are we back here?
Yeah, this has been going on for a while. I'm sure a number of people remember in this Lagos sometime in February, this same thing happened also to the shut down number of bakeries. So the question is back to regulation and the capacity of NAFDAC to enforce that. And something of great concern also to a number of people who eat bread is the fact that NAFDAC has also complained about the unhygienic conditions. Some of the bakeries they found rats in bakeries, and you know what rats can do when they get to mix up with
there's Lassa fever at the very least.
So many things for us to think about. What I'd really be interested in knowing from the NAFDAC point of view, isn't if you have the master bakers commend NAFDAC on this move, saying they're ready to work with NAFDAC. It does appear there are a number of rogue elements within the system that may not be within the purview of the Bakers Association of Nigeria. They just spring up left, right, and center, and it goes on and on. So tell us how on earth they're going to have to handle them. I know people will argue if I bring up Aghogho bread here, which has no, but they say they have the ways in which they monitor what they do. Even though I'm not a fan of that bread, but the sort of conditions which Aghogho bread, for example, goes through, the chain many times leaves a lot to be desired. So I don't know if next year this will happen again, but there's some great concern for everyone in terms of regulation.
I have to say, of course, that potassium bromate is banned for use in food in Nigeria. The United Nations International Agency for Research on Cancer, AIRC, has said that potassium bromate is possibly a carcinogen, meaning it possibly causes cancer in humans. That's the reason for the ban. And as I said before, Dora Akunyili fought very hard when she was DG of NAFDAC to end the use of potassium bromate in bakeries. And NAFDAC teams would raid bakeries, and if bromate was found on the premises or in the bread, they will shut down that bakery. Eventually, the use of potassium bromate in food more or less ended. But here we have Professor Aghogho and Aghogho reminding us that in February there was a case, like that. And Aghogho is telling us that the bakers have a new tactic. Now, what they do to avoid getting caught in a raid is to not store the potassium bromate in the bakery anymore. They just keep it at home. And then every morning, they only bring a small amount to the bakery, just enough for what they need to bake for that day. And you have bakers who use potassium bromate to make their bread rise. Professor Aghogho has said, look, we have high yeast flour instead. Buy that one. The extra yeast makes the bread rise just as much as potassium bromate. But the reasons a lot of bakers prefer bromate is that it's cheaper than the high yeast flour. Simple as that. So you have a situation where some bakers are using an illegal substance that the United Nations is saying could cause cancer simply because they want to make more profit. So again, let's ask you, should government shut down bakeries using potassium bromate? Should they arrest those who are involved? After all, it's a banned substance and it could be a public health danger. And why do you think so many Nigerians are ready to risk other people's health and lives for profit? Why is that happening? 012770993. Let's take your calls now alongside your messages on WhatsApp. 012770993, 012771993, and 012773993. We've got messages on WhatsApp, yes?
No, we don't have any more messages.
All right, WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. Don't forget that 012770993 is our number for women. Hello. Thanks for calling us.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. What's your name? Turn your radio down, sir.
Okay.
All right, then. That call didn't stay.
Minister of Food and Agriculture.
Yes, you want to
Says
comment on that?
food
Go
of-
ahead. You're live on the show now.
Yes, said there is food everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe there's food everywhere in his family, not for Nigerians.
Okay.
Because I know how things before the former administration. I know how things is. I know how much they are selling bag of rice. But now it's 20-something thousand naira to process a bag of rice. Now for me that I'm selling market, for me to sell something, people will say that they are hungry. So they don't see what to eat. Because of buying market. There's no money everywhere. You understand? And so making that comment. As soon as the man will come close to me and make that comment, he would have still blood on his mouth.
No, please.
So making that kind of a comment.
Let's not threaten people live on a radio show. Would like to apologize for that comment you just heard. We're not associated with that. Peter is in Ikorodu. Welcome to the show.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sandra.
Yes.
The problem with bread is not only bread. The pepper we buy at my 12 is chemical they use to this, and it's killing. If you go there, you see the smell. Or if you buy pepper or tomato, you leave it for 1 or 2 days without you see the odor and everything. It's chemicalized. So we are in problem in Nigeria in terms of food. There's no food security. Nobody is checking what we
these
take.
are people like you and me, Peter. Why are we doing this to ourselves? This is not government anymore. It's people like you and me.
This is no government. Everywhere in any there is a regulation of which people to. If you are bringing anything to one country, there should be a specification. Somebody should see it to it, whether it's good for consumption or not. After producing it, it should go through laboratory tests before it is allowed to be taken. This is not done. We have various agencies, they are not doing their work. They are killing us. The highest age in Nigeria is 50. When you are 50, you'll be ready to go. There should be a regulation. There's no regulation.
All right, regulators need to do better work, Peter says. Mr. Darlington is in Yannick Paja. Mr. Darlington, welcome.
Sandra,
Good evening.
how you doing?
Very well.
Aghogho,
Hey, good afternoon.
on Monday you said you came from Sandra's village. Today you said you came from Tehran. What is happening?
Mr. Darlington, we don't
Go
have
ahead,
time,
please,
so let's
Darlington.
just get to the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll visit your village. I'll find out.
Oh boy.
Now, if the minister is saying Nigerians are not hungry, where are the statistics? At least you have to. You don't just say something. Let us have your statistics. Show us example of what you are saying. The purchasing power of Nigerians, is it the same thing as at a few years ago when you came into office? As I speak to you now, inflation has risen 11 point something as a result of this thing they are doing at the border. Nobody does not want Nigeria to move forward. But before you do all these things, there must be things you must put in place. If the rice and other foodstuff are available, who will complain? You must make sure that your grain reserves are full, that the farmers are back to their farms. You read the news this morning, how a woman's hand was cut off because she went to her farm. That means for farming, that woman, no more for her. When you cut off her hands, because of what? All these things are going on, and government is pretending. Half of the farmers in the north, they have left their farm still. It's on record. So who is doing the farming? And where is the food?
Good question, Mr. Darlington. We've got messages on WhatsApp that we have to take.
Yeah, let's see what's going on WhatsApp here. Eliazu Sylvester, Victoria Island, says everything about the APC and the government is scam and deceptive. Despite increments on VAT, electricity bill, bank deposits and withdrawal, possible tax on mobile calls and data, they cannot implement the 30,000 naira minimum wage. 3 weeks is too much for them to exhaust their stockpile. It's dangerous to wait. We can take all normal messages on the food issue during the Big Hat Fact from 5 p.m. So
Yes,
thank
indeed.
you all for engaging with us.
Yes, and on the other side of 4 o'clock, immediately after this conversation about Forex, let's talk to the nun who will be talking to us about baby factories and adoption. Yes, we have a Reverend Sister on the glass ceiling today. Don't go away.
Hard Facts will be right back.